Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptid's Roost. Let's just take a moment's silence for all the haters, Karens and the trolls. That's enough. Be sure to check out the blooper reel at the end of the video, which is then followed by the end screen, where you will find more videos listed. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. I am a deep web archivist, part 1 to 5. This awesome series is written by Void Bearer 2KN17. Part 1. My name at this juncture is unimportant. I will likely reveal it at a later point in time, but for the meantime, John Smith will be a suitable alias. Before I reveal to you some of the files I have archived, I will need to explain to you a bit more about myself and why I am doing this. Hopefully this will grant you a bit better insight into myself. I am, for lack of a better word, a sociopath, but unlike the ones with poor impulse control and self-destructive behaviour, I had ingrained into me at a young age proper life skills by my father, after he caught me standing over the 4th cat I had killed. It was not out of malice, I doubt it was even curiosity, and I am not trying to make an awful pun, I just did it. He demanded to know the reason for my actions, and I explained that the cats had started to follow me, and I found it annoying. When I had asked if I had done anything wrong, there was shock in his eyes, as I have later come to realise. He explained to me that the cats I had killed were beloved pets of other families who will want to know where they went. I didn't understand why this was so important, but his urgency in his voice made the impression that while I may not have cared, other people would. "Are they going to throw me in jail?" I asked. He looked at me for a moment. "No, John, I won't, but I need to understand why you act this way, and I will teach you how to blend in with the rest of the world. Your actions could have dire consequences for your life if you do not maintain control, so I will teach you. It will be difficult, but the lessons are valuable." In short, he trained me like I was an army private. Strict timetable, strict punishment, constant drills into theoretical situations. But he was never aggressive. There were times when I could see the predatory mindset he might not have ever been aware of would try to push through, but he kept it in check. Being on a military base most of my life, the discipline was familiar. Eventually I would join the army, and I did fairly well. While I did not understand why others did, I was aware that they would have motivations. The rest of my life was, I believe, mundane. Nothing of significance really appeared to mind. But then again, it is not like I have a good point of comparison. I was 8 years into my service. I was acknowledged as a capable soldier who was dependable. One night, during a night exercise in a country that I can't speak of due to certain laws, my unit was performing reconnaissance. Potential intruder was sighted. We were to verify the identity. 6 soldiers walked into the forest that night. Only I walked out, and it is the only truly definitive point in my recent years. Deep into the forest, we were in a standard search formation. Jacobs heard a Jacobs heard a crack of wood breaking and signalled us to halt. As our eyes swept around to locate the source, a rushing being charged into our line and took Hill. The scream was shortened by a loud crack. His neck was broken. Tommy went to investigate, but was dragged into the woods before anyone could countermand his actions. "Open fire?" I asked softly. "Negative. Our people might still be in there." Knives were drawn, and by that time another soldier was dragged, screaming, into the woods. 3 soldiers left, and the discipline was diminishing. "Fuck it," grumbled Erickson behind me. As soon as the movement was heard, Erickson fired. We watched as the bullets hit the creature, but no wounds were visible. This tall, lanky creature slammed its fist onto Erickson's head with a crunch noise that I cannot describe. I was grabbed and thrown to the side. My head smacked into the tree and I was dazed. I could barely hear gunfire and growls that sounded more than bestial, if that makes sense. Shaking my head, I pushed myself upright. The gun was useless, and this being was far too quick and strong to be human, but did not match any known animal I am aware of at that point in time. Rustling could be heard around me for 3 very tense minutes. They seemed to lead deeper into the woods. I was prepping to head in to verify the status of my men when I felt it stand behind me. "Empty," it said. This pale creature looking into me with presumable sunken eyes, revealing what looked like black eyes. The image of a piece of meat at the butcher's dangling by one of those large hooks immediately popped into mind. "Empty," it repeated. Then it turned around and slipped away. I couldn't move or act. Distant noises indicated that it was walking away, but the pace seemed more deliberate, like it was dragging my men. I left the forest, heading back to the base. After intense debriefing and threats of court-martial, I was allowed to remain an active soldier while undergoing therapy. Mental breakdown was the official diagnosis, while that unit was deemed MIA. They sent out 4 units to locate my old unit. 3 people returned, husks of who they once were. When I got the chance to lock eyes, we nodded once. We knew. After my service, I left and decided to further investigate the cryptid phenomenon. During this time, I would find the entity that killed my unit and several other soldiers. The Wendigo. My theory about the Wendigo hunger isn't that it seeks human meat to survive, but humanity. The human soul is what it seeks. Knowing it lost it when it consumed human flesh, it considers that it might regain it the same way, not realizing it is the act itself that will doom it to remaining a Wendigo. No longer an active soldier, I researched the cryptids, but I went further than most enthusiasts. I spoke with another soldier, who asks to remain nameless, about the deep web and the best way to browse it. He explained to me the nature of some of the sites in the dark web, but I explained that I wasn't seeking that, but the back channels, the deep web. He gave me a copy of his custom browser, which he dubbed The Fly, because it was small and looked seemingly inconsequential. It could flit past the red rooms and the like to go deep. He explained the setup and I thanked him. After setup, I went into the dark side of the internet. I was testing the program out and it worked perfectly. A few red rooms were displaying their entertainment, and I was able to slip past most of the admins. One was particularly aggressive in his actions, but the setup for this program made IP tracing a pointless endeavour. I don't fully understand the complexities, but I know that person and trust their work. So I plugged into the depths of the deep web, seeking government declassified documents and the like, and stumbled across a forum of coroners. Unlike other coroners, they didn't deal with murder, suicide, or mundane mysteries. Their victims were all cryptid or supernaturally related. I mentioned my interest in their jobs and explained I sought answers. The users were not happy with my presence, but when I explained my encounter with the Wendigo, they actually recognized me. Apparently, certain reports from psychiatrists can make it to them if certain words are used, and the doctor did not suspect subterfuge. They offered a deal. I archive some of their cases and I would learn about what happened to my unit. They didn't seem to have a problem if I was to release most of the details to the public, but they warned that most people would not accept the surreality of the world. But if I could garner some interest, they would allow it, as long as personal details were omitted. I would come to understand why later on, but I agreed. Part 2. I am a deep web archivist. Case 1. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the interest in my new vocation. As you can imagine, the case that I chose to disclose first was the one I was personally involved in. I was not quite aware of the implications that would be brought to light in doing this, however. Having spoken with some of the morticians in the forum page, they asked that any name is to be withheld, locations were to be generalised, and make sure no government agency was aware of my action. I agreed, and they showed me the case of my unit. Case file: Wendigo, Milvet, number 0261. After consolidating the reports with the lone survivor of the event and the autopsies on the recovered military personnel bodies, the following is a fairly accurate recollection of the events. At 0116, the MIL unit was sent to investigate the reports of an intruder. This was a training exercise to judge the capabilities of lone survivor as a team leader. Approximately at 0139, the MIL unit had an auditory reconnaissance of Wendigo of number 0183. Estimated identity of Cryptid is John Sampson, a hunter who went missing around 1703. Recovered body: Private Jacobs reported a branch snapping. The MIL unit halted and tried to locate the source of the sound. Around 0140, the Wendigo, number 0183, charged the unit and snatched Private Second Class Hill, snapping his neck. Private Tommy went to investigate but was grabbed by the claws of Wendigo, number 0183, and his throat slashed. Specialist Jameson was dragged under another bush. Claw marks indicate his death was slower as the lungs were punctured multiple times. Private Second Class Erickson was able to shoot Wendigo, number 0183, when it charged the group again. As multiple previous cases have established, standard ammunition fails to leave a true impact on the body of a Wendigo. Further evidence that older Wendigo are virtually immune to small arms fire. Erickson was killed immediately when his skull was impacted from the top, severely misaligning 2 vertebrae, severing the spinal cord and crushing the throat vertically. Lone survivor was knocked aside. Estimated time duration encounter with Wendigo number 0183 is 3 minutes. Acting Corporal Jenkins's body was never recovered. Of special note in this case is that this is one of the first times that the cryptid in question spoke in response to the presence of the survivor. The word empty is confusing, as Wendigo are traditionally voracious in their pursuit of human flesh. Autopsy summary of Erickson, Jacobs, Tommy, Jameson. Erickson: fractured skull from overhead strike from Cryptid. Catastrophic damage to the neck and throat area due to the force of the impact. Severing of the spinal cord implies death was instantaneous. Jacobs: multiple stab wounds from the claws of the Cryptid. Secondary infection was not able to infect the body. Body was still cremated as per protocol, as was Tommy. Tommy: throat slashed by the claws of the Cryptid. Note: this is the same Tommy who witnessed the encounter of the police officer who encountered Skinwalker, Michigan Subterritory number 4. Said police officer also reported on the mushed corpse in the vehicle. The 2 deceased military personnel names Hill and Jenkins were not recovered, likely taken as food by Wendigo number 0183. Judging by the enforced counselling sessions for the survivor, it seems unlikely he willingly caused the incident. Reading over the case file, I tried to figure out the implications of the things that caught my attention. Had these people really figured out who the Wendigo was, or was it just guesswork? Had there been enough encounters for the filing system to be displayed in the way you saw it? I was aware of Tommy was given the choice of enlistment or prison. It makes me wonder if the incident they refer to was the same case that caused him to make that decision. Why are skinwalkers designated by territories? Could it be that given their ability to shapeshift, make it impossible to identify who they originally were? The mushed corpse is not a reference I am familiar with. While I could imagine why it was called that way, the term mush seems overkill. But given the wealth of resources I had access to, I chose to see what these morticians and their network had concluded regarding Wendigo. Wendigo, humanoid cryptid. While we have been unable to locate the first known Wendigo, we have concluded that the original story of these beings is more fact than fiction. Wendigo are humans who, after prolonged starvation, consume human flesh, and in the process are cursed by something which causes their transformation. The transformation is an approximate growth of limbs by 22%, and the fingernails elongate, sharpen and harden to assist in catching more humans to consume. Why the Wendigo feel the need to consume human flesh is not readily apparent. It is speculated that it is the only meat that sates their never-ending hunger. After consuming human flesh of a sufficient quality, older Wendigo requiring more, they return to a place of significance for them and hibernate for years. Fire seems to be a bane to these creatures, as it makes holding off the younger ones a more viable tactic. However, Wendigo who are over 2 centuries old seem to ignore the heat of the flames and ignore it as a stalling tactic. Weaponizing it against Wendigo is the far superior option. However, Most people, when facing cryptids, seem to leave their rational minds behind as they see something truly abhorrent to them, and seldom take the time to mull through the problem. Given that Wendigo gain in strength and speed, it is understood why humans rarely have the time to plan. Cases involving firearms were conflicting until it was deduced that younger Wendigo were vulnerable to small arms fire, until their bodies matured to resist calibers smaller than the .22. Very few counters have involved active military personnel, so judging that firepower is difficult unless more encounters were had. Knives are an effective, if foolish, idea for Wendigos who are less than a century old. Their behaviour indicates that they shun civilization. Reasons why are speculative. The information was illuminating. Hopefully this will be of benefit to you all. If there are any other cryptids that you wish to know about, or unusual deaths, please let me know and I will try to locate the appropriate case file. Part 3. I am a deep web archivist. Case 2. There were a few more votes for a Dogman case, so I have found one that I hope strikes something within you. This one is fairly recent from what I can tell. There is some footage from fairly early commercially available nanny cam footage as well, but I have been asked not to be uploaded that due to the hidden surveillance encryption which allows the alphabet agencies access at their discretion. Case file: Dogman, civilian, number 819. Initial victim is an autistic male of 9 years old. Severe anxiety around strangers. Communicative abilities restricted to barely legible writing in a large diary. Secondary victim is the child's mother. Father's whereabouts unknown. Not important to this case. 3 weeks prior to the incident, she purchased an emotional support animal to see if it would alleviate her child's anxiety issues. Location is a lifestyle block in the state of Montana. The land is family owned and was seldom in use. Financial information was further obtained in the process of our investigations into the event and deemed inconsequential, but recorded for the sake of necessity. The initial victim was content to be left alone, but according to the counselling adhered to by the mother, she felt this would hamper the social development of the child. Records from these counselling sessions indicated that the counsellor would explain that due to the levels of anxiety the child exhibits in social situations, there would be little chance for future development. The counsellor did gently coax the mother into acquiring an emotional support animal that the child might feel bonded to. Given the location where they lived, a dog was suggested. According to the audio from the nanny cam footage, the bonding process was a success, with the initial victim showing some self-confidence, even looking his mother directly in her eyes. The dog was well trained and didn't react to the extreme emotions exhibited in the lounge area. 3 weeks later, the mother could be seen running into the lounge. The time was quite late, judging by the lack of light outside the windows. Blood could be seen on her clothing. Judging by her wails and screams, the child was dead, mauled by some animal. Clutched tightly in her hand is the cordless phone for the house. While the phone line was disconnected, the microphone still worked and the hard drive in the base was still recording. The mother was aware that the phone lines weren't working and she could hear scraping noises upstairs. This was confirmed via the recordings acquired. She was then seen rushing to a window and she looked out in shock. After significant alterations of the video recording, a lupine humanoid cryptid, known commonly as a dogman, was seen skulking at the edge of the camera range. Presumably seeing this, the mother backed away and turned as a canine head peered around the corner. Nearly hitting its head on the doorframe indicated that it was not of a standard height of any known dog breeds. It stalked into the room on its hind legs. The coloration looks like the emotional support animal previously mentioned. Parts of the fur seemed matted down, likely with blood. A third dogman also entered but was on all fours. Judging by the gait, it seemed unsure of its pace. This could be attributed to the polished wooden floor. The secondary victim was frozen in fear when she saw the two cryptids. The attack was swift and coordinated. The one on all fours went low, while the standing one went high. Her death was quick. The third one joined the other two for the meal. After the standing one unlocked the door, they then walked to the door, opened it, then bounded out into the night. Police investigation came as part of an initial missing persons report after the mother hadn't called her family. Police found the bodies and they opened a homicide investigation. The case remains open. The bodies were diverted from the regular coroners to ones affiliated with this forum. Autopsy: initial victim. Multiple bite marks to the arms and stomach area. Scratch marks from a large paw evidenced on the limbs. Microtumours located within the brain which could indicate the autism and social anxiety problems. Secondary victim. Bite wound on the ankle, severing an Achilles tendon. Single bite mark to throat. Evidence that the stomach area was gorged. Missing organs include ovaries, kidneys, uterus, stomach, pancreas, liver, 95% of the intestines. Secondary investigation. Our primary one. Scouring the nanny cam footage shows in the weeks leading up to the attack, movement could be seen during the day of the emotional support animal. No anomalous movement detected. 5 days after the bonding, a dogman cryptid could be seen creeping up to the house. The emotional support animal stood up and walked over to the wall, opposite of where the dogman crawled to. The ESA stood there for several minutes, until the dogman cryptid crept away. The initial victim just watched his ESA stood at the wall, while the initial victim is normally next to the ESA at all times, even during sleep. The movement at the edge of the nanny cam view resumed until the night of the attack. Movement in the peripheral showed two dogmen approach the house. One skulked at the edge of the light on all fours, while the other ran to the side. Screams could be heard from a location suspected to be the child's bedroom. Soon, the mother could be seen entering the lounge in the state previously described. Several journals were taken as evidence in the initial investigation. Upon discovery of the contents within, they were switched with duplicates, with explicit mentions of dogs being removed. The mother made note of several minor incidents where her child would stand at the windows and look into the forest. When she asked if he would like to go for a walk in there, he refused violently. As soon as she mentioned that they wouldn't walk there, the child immediately stopped and hugged his mother. Judging by the descriptions in the following incidents, it appears to the same location that ESA would stand when the dogman approached. The mother advised, while she did some basic yard work, that she always felt trepidation when she looked to the forest area. Like there was someone watching her. She tried to muster the courage to go look for herself, but didn't want to risk leaving her child alone. The journals of the boy seemed nonsensical, but after multiple encounters with children on the spectrum, certain clues were common among all of them. These journals were able to get upgraded in their standards of language. The initial victim was aware of the cryptid presence. When he would see the dogman standing outside his window, he would scream for his mother, causing the cryptid to flee. This happened for about 2 years. One day, while he was walking around the backyard within view of his mother, he felt the dogman approach. Its claw snagged his shorts and started to drag him away, but his mother fortunately spotted her child disappear from view. When she approached, the dogman ran, leaving the child behind. What people would find most chilling is that the day that ESA stood near the cryptid was referenced in the book of the initial victim. Doggy was wrong. Looked like doggy, but not doggy. Ma not no doggy wrong. Doggy looks at me like the bad thing at times. It is surmised that the ESA was turned into a dogman through some unknown means, as 3 dogmen were seen running from the house. The ESA dogman was able to use his paw to turn the lock by hooking the key in between his toes. The handle was easier to manage. Details on the cryptid dogman. Dogman is of a common cryptid type, the anthropomorphic animal. While it doesn't have full human features, it is able to walk on hind legs for extended periods of time and displays near human intelligence. Significantly weaker than the more supernatural Wendigo or Skinwalker, regularly available firearms are enough to kill a dogman. Reports indicate that upon death, dogmen revert to their more basic canine form. If there are any more cryptids you would like to read about, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Part 4. I am a deep web archivist. Case 3. As previously mentioned, there have been requests for a case including the cryptid known colloquially as Bigfoot. This is an unusual cryptid in which the incidents involving are often just sightings of something big in the woods. But there have been journals from long-time hikers and campers who have had prolonged encounters with these cryptids. There is also one autopsy for a cryptid. The mortician who conducted that autopsy was inconsolable for months afterwards. He has recently returned to work. He has also requested counselling until further notice. Case file: Bigfoot, civilian, number 011. A weathered looking journal was found on a picnic table in a large national park. For obvious reasons, the exact location will not be included. Park ranger retrieved the journal, and after trying to find out the identity of the owner, the subsequent report made it to us, where we retrieved the journal and spoke with the park ranger. The park ranger agreed to not mention anything about this journal. The camper who wrote this journal had gone on a rediscovery adventure. They stated how they hadn't been connected to the outdoors for a period of 8 years and greatly missed the tranquility. Having gone on a sabbatical, they did the appropriate level of research for the area they were going to, had gotten equipment to replace old gear, they did some training to keep fit for the long hikes, spoke with the park rangers and left. The details were removed from the relevant databases. The beginning of the journal is a descriptive journey. Make a map in the beginning quite easy. 2 weeks in is the first indication there was something preternatural afoot. The sense of being watched and the occasional muffled snap of a branch being broken. This went on for around 6 days. The person did not indicate any trepidation regarding these events. A couple of days after the sense of being watched stopped, the camper detailed an encounter with 2 very gruff looking men. They had an almost feral look in their eyes, and their presence was intensely unsettling. Their communication was rough, almost punctuated with growls. Their leering gaze made the camper very uncomfortable. As they took one step closer, they both stopped simultaneously. They looked around like kids caught with a hand in the cookie jar. A gasp escaped their lips and they bolted away. It wouldn't be until later that the camper would recognise the look and behaviour. It was that of the startled prey. The writing is in cursive and had been fluent throughout the journal so far. The night after that encounter, the camper noted that instead of feeling refreshed like they normally had since their excursion, they felt mentally exhausted. Careful examination noted that the cursive was not as flowing. For the next week, the fluency of the cursive writing was deteriorating, and block lettering was being used in place of it. Repeated mention of a reoccurring dream. The camper describes the ineffable urge to stand in the middle of a clearing next to a large silhouette of a humanoid. The dream would just consist of the 2 of them standing there for hours on end. After the aforementioned week, the camper detailed the first proper encounter with a Bigfoot. Or to be more precise, the Bigfoot from the dream. Exiting their tent to cook an evening meal, the camper noticed the presence immediately. A large humanoid, approximately 9 feet tall, stood half hidden behind a tree at the edge of a small clearing the camper was camping in. Instead of fear, the camper felt a sense of serenity. The camper nodded to the Bigfoot, then cooked their meal. The camper had trouble putting into words what happened next because, while he did engage in a form of communication, due to the nature of how the conversation took place, putting it into words seemed difficult, as 5 pages were filled with writing which was crossed out on multiple occasions. From what could be ascertained, the Bigfoot would telepathically impart the concept of something into the camper's mind. For this instance, it was the concept of cooking food. Not the description of it, but the concept. It seemed a little hazy, as if unsure. The camper then tried to explain vocally about the process of cooking one's food, but the Bigfoot reinforced the idea, and instead of cooking, the focus was on the process of cooking. It took a while, but it seemed that the Bigfoot was looking for an invitation to join the camper for the evening meal. The camper tried to form the image of the 2 of them sitting together to eat, which the Bigfoot took as the invitation it was meant to be. For around 10 days, this guest would be invited to join for the evening meal, and they would sit and eat. The meat would have to be cooler for the Bigfoot to enjoy properly. The writing was getting thicker, as if the hand writing the information down was heavier than normal. Since the likelihood of the camper gaining such a significant amount of mass to to allow this event to occur, the mystery would remain unsolved until the end of the journal. After the 10 days, the Bigfoot put forth the concept of community. The camper put forth the sense of city life while shaking his head. The Bigfoot frowned, then sent the concept again, but this time the focus was on community in the forest with other Bigfoot. After a while, the camper agreed. The belongings were packed and the pair walked off into the woods. It wouldn't be until they go to the location the Bigfoot was leading him to that the camper noticed that he was finally able to stand eye to eye with his large, quiet friend. 3 more journal entries followed, but the language was very broken English, like trying to describe through concepts in as few words as possible. The entry that the morticians found interesting was not the communal aspect of Bigfoot culture, but when the two saw those men, the concept of wrongness, imagined as a black fog with a large red cross in it surrounding those two, and then an image of an endless corridor of trees like a hellish maze. Small food items like berries were used as a concept for a small amount of food near the bad men's feet with an early sunrise. It was agreed that the Bigfoot, due to their telepathic nature, could cause people to become lost in their forest through telepathic manipulation, and while not violent, did leave enough food for the 2 bad men so they would not die due to starvation. Case file: Bigfoot autopsy number 01. The Bigfoot in question was found dead in a national park somewhere within the US. Since the park ranger wanted to be vocal about this discovery, he was gaslit into alcoholism, which, given his family background, took little effort. The Bigfoot was 9.5 feet tall. His mass weighed in at around 380 pounds. There was very little fat. The mortician who conducted the autopsy noted that the hair was soft to the touch and the skin was tough to cut through. Preliminary examination showed significant injuries to the torso and the arms. Scratch marks indicated a skinwalker due to the variety of necrotizing facilitators in the wounds. What was startling was that there were antibodies for the infections, preventing any decomposition. The musculature was incredibly dense, as was the bone structure. The killing blow seemed to be when the claws of the skinwalker penetrated the heart. There were no adrenal glands within the Bigfoot, nor were there any reproductive organs. But judging by the above mentioned journal, it seems that these cryptids can infect others, but only the ones they choose. I would state that Bigfoot are a higher form of cryptid. While their communicative abilities are unique, they have shown to be capable of communicating with others, and their ability to show mercy when they could have easily killed those men indicates a higher level of communicative awareness. Part 5. I am a deep web archivist. Case 4. Mothman. Research in popular culture indicates that this winged cryptid is an omen, mainly connected with ill fortune. Correlations between alleged Mothman sightings and disasters seem to indicate this. There are not many cases involving the Mothman in these archives, mainly due to the fact that this deals with the dead people directly caused by cryptids or other unexplained events. Since Mothman does not kill, this greatly reduces the amount of information that is able to be accrued. There are some journals of Mothman events scribed for those who have seen the cryptid. Case file Mothman, civilian number 004. Journal of a 15-year-old girl. Most of the contents are what you would normally find inside a journal of a teenage girl who still kept up with this tradition. The entries of interest in regards to the Mothman are very few. The first entry describes a walk the girl took through a wooded area near her school. She notes how she is confident walking through the woods by herself due to her athleticism. She has also had several years of wilderness experience. The walk was supposed to be about 3 hours. Approximately 40 minutes into this walk, the girl spotted a dead deer with circular holes in the chest area. She looked around for any sign of a hunter, but this trail was a known walking area, so the chance of a hunter risking the death of an innocent person would be extremely unlikely in her purview. She stood up and continued on her way, and she was bothered by a feeling she could not describe, like a light buzzing in her mind that kept her very vigilant. After 10 minutes, the girl was brought to a halt when she saw a tall humanoid with wings glaring at her with red eyes. The sight of this monster caused the girl to bolt. The girl would make notes indicating she was paranoid about this creature. 2 months later, she would detail her second encounter. This one was more terrifying as her paranoia had dwindled down slightly until it landed by her bedroom window. Its glowing red eyes would peer into her room, and seeing this tall monster gaze at her brought her paranoia back. She screamed at it to leave, and when her parents came to investigate, they could not see any signs of the monster she described. This is when things took an unusual turn. When the girl was able to control herself long enough to conduct her own investigation, she noticed some large gouges in the wall and on several trees. She took photos with her cell phone, and her writing became significantly more manic. She would claim to see it more and more. It began to have a deteriorating effect on her sanity. Her parents pulled her from school due to the repeated screams she would exhibit. Eventually the girl would be placed into a mental institution. Her suicide occurred 5 years later. Secondary investigation. While some hallmarks of the encounter were similar to other encounters, the secondary investigation brought to light some intriguing details. First of all, there were no records of a deer carcass found with holes in it along any walking trail. The closest thing was a dead squirrel which had a singular circular hole in its neck. This was quite decomposed when found, but nothing else found matched the injuries as described. Obviously the false sightings while she was in public were noted down, but the photos were what drew the attention of the investigators. Out of the 5 working the case, only one of them could see the apparent damage, but going by what that investigator described and what was noted in the journal were almost as conflicting as they were corroborating. The investigator was a known conspiracy theorist who was very fastidious in his investigations, while almost none of them bore fruit. The one leading to his current employment certainly did. This has led to speculation that the apparent correlation leading to the popular belief that Mothman is a harbinger of tragedy could be its ability to cause people to become obsessively paranoid and allow people to look for links that aren't actually there. The parallel theory, it is called. 2 lines, one denoting tragedies and the other for Mothman sightings. Some dates would mix, but given the population density, the fact that technology is not infallible and human error is also a leading factor, it could be explained that it is 2 lines of events, not overlaying, but happening to share the same dates some of the time. I am unsure of what to make of this myself. While this sounds like it sort of debunks the Mothman, I think there is a little more to it than that. Imagine being able to turn some of the more observant enemies into a paranoid fool that wouldn't be believed because the paranoid person no longer fully functions on the same societal norm. Their actions would discredit them, and they would be the boy who called wolf. While they do actually see the wolf, no one else can. It makes no sense to me. I am not sure if it makes sense to you all, but this is one possible interpretation. The Mothman is an aerial scout unit who is able to disguise itself in paranoid delusions. A scout for who or what is yet to be determined. The second interpretation is that it could be weeding out those vulnerable to the rake. As a cryptid, the rake is able to have a more psychological draining effect on those who are unfortunate enough to encounter it. And the almost nihilistic viewpoints those people suffer could easily have been paranoid delusions instead. But this is just my interpretation of the cases I have seen and transcribed. Not everyone will agree with me, and that is perfectly fine. But I think there is a lot more to these cryptid entities and the unusual deaths that are not related to any logical chain of events. I'm just not sure what this is yet. I hope you enjoy the blooper reel. As I didn't understand why this was. Your actions could have dire consequences for your life if you do not While I did not understand why others did, I was aware that there were. The rest of my life, I believe, mundane. Rustling could be heard around me for They sent out 4 units to locate my old loot. They sent out 4 units to... Fucking hell. Not realising it is the act itself that will doom it to... Motherfucker. Apparently, certain reports from psychiatrists can make it to them if certain words are used. But they warned that most people would not accept this. However, most people when facing cryptids seem to leave their rational minds behind as they see something true. What people would find most chilling is that the day the ESA stood near the cryptid, this one was more terrifying, as her presence had dwindled down slightly. Eventually the girl would be placed into... The closest thing was a dead squirrel which had a singular... The closest thing was a dead squirrel which had a singular... Fucking hell. The closest thing was a dead squirrel which had a circular... No, fuck's sake. family, please be so kind as to throw punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing, you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. A very big thank you to Voidbearer 2KN17 for allowing me to narrate this awesome series. Make sure to check out their Reddit profile for more brilliant stories. And be sure to take a look at the playlist here for more of their stories that I may have already narrated. I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the authors that I have worked with and all the ones that I will work with in the future. So thank you all, my brothers and sisters. And why not hashtag CryptidsRoost in your comments. A quick thank you to all of my Cryptids Roost community family too. We are now well on our journey to 1000 subscribers. So please spread the word and help us to grow and expand. And don't forget to share the videos too. If you would like to throw me $1 or $3, I'd be very much appreciative. I do have PayPal, paypal.me/CryptidsRoost. Alternatively, I have an account at buymeacoffee.com. You don't even need to register on either site to donate. You can also follow us at my Facebook group, Twitter and Instagram. I also have Ko-Fi, BitChute and Rumble. I have a subreddit if you have a story you would like me to narrate for you. All relevant links will be below. And don't forget to check out the end screen. See above. That will also list some more videos in my back catalogue. Take care everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness
is not.